Thank you very much for talking with us, High Commissioner. First, Sunday will make 2 months since general elections were held in Guyana. I wondered what you make of it.
Well, I think the important thing is where we actually seem to be going now, which is this CARICOM scrutinised recount. And I think that's important. And there's a process in play and there's a process being planned. And I think the sooner that starts, the better, because as you say, it's 8 weeks, it's 2 months since we had an election. And I think everybody is really keen to get a resolution and to get a credible resolution to that process.
Tell me what's at stake vis-a-vis Guyana-UK relations if this is not resolved very quickly?
I think the important thing, you've seen what the Foreign Secretary said on the 10th of March and the 24th of March. He has stressed the importance of a credible result, otherwise there will be consequences. And the important thing here is, we have a shared set of values here with Guyana in terms of being fellow Commonwealth members. We share the same values on democracy and good governance, and it's important that we all uphold those values.
You have been accused of meddling and interfering in Guyana's relations with your statements, constant statements, I can say. What do you make of those?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, what I'm doing in 2015 is exactly the same as what I did in 2015. Sorry, what I'm doing in 2020 is exactly the same as what I did in 2015.
Which is what?
And the reaction that we had in 2015 was exactly the same, albeit from a different political party. Everything I have always done here and everything I have said has always been with the very clear view of upholding what we just talked about, which was good governance, democracy and the rule of law, and in supporting Guyana in its democracy.
I know you observed the process all along and observing still. What has shocked you the most about what has happened since March 2nd?
I think it's as much the length of time. Here we are, as you said, a while ago, 8 weeks later, and we still haven't got a resolution. And I don't think that is good for everybody, because everybody, we have business, we have COVID, and we have a situation now where we need people to be focusing on dealing with COVID and dealing with the implications of COVID. So we really need to get to a credible resolution of this election and then move on to dealing with what is the biggest threat to the world in generations.
Well, the Foreign Office has said that it is willing to support this recount process. In what way do you think that will happen?
Well, we've been supporting obviously the Commonwealth and the work of the Commonwealth activity, and we will continue to support what the Commonwealth are doing. As you said, we will be here as observers.
You'll be there yourself?
Certainly the plan is, the GCOM chair has talked about inviting all international and local observers. And certainly at some stage, I might not be there 24/7, but certainly at some stage, I would like to go along and see the recount.
And you talked about COVID-19 just now. I was wondering if any sort of British funding to Guyana is in jeopardy because of that. I know the funding has been held up since the no confidence motion for some projects. With COVID-19 now, could you explain?
No, I think so. The important thing to look at COVID-19 is this is a humanitarian issue, and it's an issue which is very much the biggest threat to the world in generations. So far, globally, we have committed about $1 billion to fighting the pandemic, and that includes support to vaccines and developing a vaccine to make sure it's affordable for everybody. That includes helping, it also includes helping vulnerable and developing countries in their healthcare and whatever. And certainly a lot of what we give, certainly in the Caribbean, goes through PAHO WHO, and about $9 million so far has been given by us to PAHO WHO for its activity in the Caribbean. And I think we have found historically that for something like this, working with a respected organisation such as PAHO WHO, who has the expertise on the ground, is the best way to deliver our assistance.
So it's too soon to say whether development funding for countries like Guyana could be affected because of COVID-19?
In which way do you mean?
Like the funding that is available for Guyana for the
No,
projects?
so the funding which we will give to PAHO WHO is for the whole Caribbean, including Guyana, and there is no restriction on how PAHO WHO will use that funding. If they want to use that funding, which I expect they will do, or part of that funding, which I expect they will do for Guyana, then that is perfectly acceptable to us.
And the funding which was available for infrastructure projects and so on, that remains secure?
So that is still there. It's still paused for the reasons that we talked about last time we talked, but that money is still there, ready and waiting to move on to the next phase whenever, hopefully, as soon as we can.
And so you say that to get the elections over with is the critical thing at this point in time, and also in helping to manage the COVID-19 crisis?
I think fundamentally, obviously, for obvious reasons, lots of people here are thinking elections, because we are nearly 8 weeks away from the election date, and people really, I think, want to move on, get a credible result for that election, and then we can move on to dealing with the other issues, not just the medical issues with COVID, but also the economic issues with COVID and the livelihood issues with COVID, because that is having a huge impact on people's livelihoods. So the sooner we can start to focus on dealing with that, the better.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.